Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. With me in the studio, as always, is the magnificent man himself. I did a little hand roll there, is Eric J. Morin.
Hey, glad to be here after, we're shooting this right after Memorial Day, so long weekend for everybody. Energized, back in the house. Just realized as you tend to wear some, quite a few Brooks Brothers shirts. So at what point can we say sponsored by Brooks Brothers?
Right? Hey, I will take that. Give me 20% off of Brooks Brothers. I'll be happy. They make great just Oxford shirts that are non-iron. Yeah. That's why I like them. Non-iron shirts. If you don't have them, do it. Go to Brooks Brothers today.
Now they owe us money.
Yeah, now they owe us. That or we'll get like a letter that says you cannot do this on the podcast any longer.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. As always, guys, if you're new to the podcast, make sure to like, subscribe, share with other people. We do this for you guys. We want to make sure you guys are getting value from this. So anytime you guys want us to talk about something in particular too, just let us know and we'll make sure it happens. But today, we were trying to think of, something relative to what's going on in the marketplace right now. And I think the biggest topic of conversation, we've mentioned this before, but we've never really gone too deep into it, but AI. I think artificial intelligence is kind of reshaping the business landscape, and I was kind of curious to see if what your thoughts are on it and how potentially if you've seen anyone use it in a dental practice so far. I haven't seen it quite yet, other than text messaging, automation, those type of things, but those have been around forever. If there was any other area that you've noticed it kind of impacting the dental space or the medical space or even businesses in general.
Wow, what a the first time I saw ChatGPT, when someone did it, showed me its potential. It was pretty eye-opening, right? I mean, there's parts of, Terminator that kind of that creep up, and this fear of the, I even thought about that this morning. I saw this thing was AI drones. It was a whole drone show powered by AI, and I thought to myself, what if those were weaponized drones by AI? Like it just, right? So there's like this whole like doomsday thing that can come out with the thought of AI. Anyone who grew up saw those type of movies play out, and we're seeing kind of reality of that. And so it's scary. Yeah. And I was listening to some thoughts lately on the governance of AI and how to keep it in control and those types of things. But we won't go into the fear mode today. We won't talk about the fear, but it at this point we can talk about where it is today.
Yeah,
I don't know what the future holds, but but today it definitely is an enhancement to the work we do, and I'll leave it there. It's just when I say leave it, I mean I'll leave the topic really there today, which is how can it enhance. Now I use the word enhancement, which is actually extremely strategic, because it's not a replacement, not yet. It could be a replacement at some point, and it's not yet. It's an enhancement. And so growing algorithms, that are growing technology, there's growing information that can make this advance. But, if you learn how to utilize, you do have to learn how to utilize AI. And I think it can be utilized quite well, especially in a dental practice, arena, because so much of what's needed to be done can be performed autonomously. And there are so many things that we do on a day-to-day basis that take up 80% of our time that are probably not worth it. And we can find ways to utilize AI. Now, when I say enhancement, I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So, look, there's a popular phone service AI. I won't mention their name, but they're a popular phone service AI. And the idea of this AI is that it's going to listen to all your phone calls, and then, it's going to tell you where the mistake was, and then that's going to help transform. But the problem is that anyone who's actually been in sales understands that there's something called call reluctance. It is fear when a lot of people pick up the phone. And there's actually, believe it or not, in dental office, there's actually quite a bit of call reluctance. When somebody comes back, and this goes into psychology a little bit. So So when somebody comes back and pushes back on you, for instance, like, I'm not coming in today, my kid's sick, I'm not going to show up, right?
Yeah.
What happens to the brain as we move into frontal lobe, which is more fight or flight, which means moving away from the neocortex and moving into the frontal lobe. Now we're in fight or flight. And when people are in fight or flight, all of it goes out the window unless you have trained to where you have moved through the levels of competency, and eventually you have unconscious competency, which means you can just do this without thinking. It's like, people ask me about stage work, for instance, and they're like, how do you go up and just talk on stage for 8 hours at a time without rehearsing any of it? Well, it's because I've practiced it so much. I've done so much of it. I've done so much time on stage that it's a very natural way, just like someone having a conversation is. You don't have to practice for a conversation. It's the same thing. Or this podcast, I don't have to think about what I'm going to say. I don't have any scripts in front of me. I just talk, right? So the same thing has to happen on the phones, is that people have to be trained up, and it can't be once, and it can't be a script. Script doesn't actually change the fact that you, like, because if that was the case, every cold call person in the world, like, cold calling would still be huge, because you would just follow your script. But when somebody picks up and they yell at you, there's no script for that, right? There's kind of like, and so yes, AI can enhance. It can give you numbers. It can give you feedback. It can help somebody try to do some coaching to your team. But I can promise you that AI does not replace that situation. It doesn't replace the fight or flight. It doesn't replace how do you overcome objections. It doesn't replace all those things. So somebody says, well, I bought this service, and this service then is a service that uses AI to track my phones. That's going to help. It's an enhancement. Mm-hmm. Is it going to fix the problem? I know people that use that service, and I know for a fact it doesn't. So it's not. It doesn't fix the problem, but it gives you an enhancement by having automation. Instead of you having to sit there and listen to thousands of phone calls, the AI can speed up that process and then show you where the problems are, and then you can utilize that problem and then train the problem and fix it. So it can enhance what we do. Does it replace it? No, not yet, but we got to figure out where the enhancements are, and then what is still, right? We don't want to shut it down. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of people who are like, someone sent me a picture, Matthew, the other day of like this office with paper charts. Did you send it to me?
I sent it to you, yeah. I was like, yes, this, as you guys know, I take lots of phone calls in from people trying to get into our leadership. And ultimately, I do a lot of research on the front end. And there was a gentleman that was trying to convince me that he had a lot of his stuff together. And on his, right on the front of his website is a picture of his front office with big old thing of paper charts. And I was like, I know exactly what that business looks like. I think you nailed it on the head in the beginning of that was it doesn't replace it. I think when you look at like something like that call service, you use the data to help you train your team. I think a lot of times what we see in the marketplace, and we've seen in dentistry, at least since I've been in dentistry, is there'll be a new shiny gadget that comes out and people think that that's going to solve all their problems. And they will just buy it. And then 4-6 months later, and I'm sure if we have any reps that are listening to our podcast, they're probably shaking their head like, yes, they just think that's going to make their phones better or scheduling more efficient is just by having the service. No, you have to have someone like utilizing that service to train the team. Like there needs to be that middleman that takes that service and is like, okay, Susie up front, it looks like she's having troubles with this. Let me listen in next week, see what's really going on, and then I can correct the situation using that information. It helps with time management, so she doesn't have to spend all of her time with that. She has exactly what she needs from this information to go do it. And what we see all the time, and especially in dental practices, is they think that service is just going to replace them having to train their team. And then they realize, oh, well, now my marketing's not working. Well, it's probably because of this, but you're not fixing that problem. And it's a constant revolving wheel. And I think as you get bigger, you get more reliant on these things, and you become like this. We work with a lot of group practices, and you personally work with a lot of high-end practices. They'll become self-reliant on some of these services. And AI, as it's getting pushed in the marketplace, I saw an ad the other day for an AI scheduling tool that's supposed to make your calendar more efficient. It just types in what you need to do, and you put a priority on it, and then it puts it in your calendar, and it'll And it's funny because it takes the human element out of it. And I was laughing at it because the way, for most of you guys that haven't heard this before, the way that Eric and myself, our minds operate is we work really, really, really efficiently in small bursts. So we can get a heck of a lot done in an hour, but then we need like a mental break. And then we can go back to it for another hour. This service wanted to take that hour time block and block it into like 4 15-minute segments. And I was like, that would not work for us. We would be chaotic. We would never get anything done because we just need more time in a small section.
I call it my butterfly time. This is what. So sometimes I float around the office for like 15 minutes, and I used it. I never had a word for it, so I would go meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, and I'd walk out, and then I'd just float around the office. And people were like, why is he even bothering us? I mean, I'd float into, hey, how's it going? And so I eventually called it my butterfly time. I was like, I need butterfly time. I need to turn off all the stuff, and I just mentally recharge. Yeah. So anyhow, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's something that I could see coming into dental practices shortly is scheduling a lot of the phoning stuff. I even saw, we have on-site consulting at Tower Leadership. For those of you guys that didn't know, we do have someone that would come into your office and really fix some processes or treatment planning, those like some high-level consulting aspects. And one of the things that we'll do is if you don't have any SOPs in your practice, we'll help you build out SOPs. I saw this software that will literally like have everything housed into a digital system using AI. And I was like, okay, so we're starting to see all of these things come out with AI. I think it's important for you guys to realize most of this stuff is in beta. Like this is stuff that just got released, and they all have a disclaimer at the bottom that says we are not responsible for any of the information that comes out here. The system is still learning and all of these things. So I think it's important for you guys to realize you cannot just solely rely on this because it literally says that we're still working on this. This is brand new. We probably shouldn't have launched it, but we did anyways.
Well, that goes down now, and I'm not even going to use I'm not even going to announce the brand, but there was a PowerPoint type software, and it said it was an AI PowerPoint slide. Now, by the way, for the first few months, I got the beta, and there was no AI. I was like, what the heck? This is no AI in this. But then eventually it came out with some AI tools where I could just type in create slide with 3 images around, a dental practice, and it would do it, right? So that saved time, right? I didn't have to go in and create boxes and all that stuff. So it was kind of neat. So it's an enhancement. I can do a presentation in much less time because instead of worrying about, or the team having to worry about graphics, and now we have a graphic team, but I'm just saying about like simple graphics, boxes, pictures, those types of things. Why am I going to take 20 minutes to create a slide when AI can do it in 10 seconds, if even 10 seconds? Now,
and that shows content. Yeah, content. Just to jump in real quick, so most of you guys that don't understand how content works is typically you have a whole team. Like you sit in a boardroom, you go through a bunch of material, and then you start creating this presentation. And that's not replacing AI. It's not replacing. It's allowing us to be more efficient. So the content team, we can now focus on other areas, and we can use AI to help us with the build out of a PowerPoint. Yeah. Just to jump in right there, I think it's important for people to know the concept behind that.
That's the whole point, is an enhancement. It doesn't create it, and heaven forbid you actually go to AI and try to create your presentation using information on the web, which
there will be lots of people that come out and do that, by the way.
But let me tell you what,
so you're aware.
It's. But the problem is if you've never utilized this stuff and you don't know how to actually utilize it to actually. Content should be content with a purpose. It should be understanding the positives, the negatives, the drawbacks, the hurdles you've overcome, and all these types of things. If content is just some garbage that's put out on AI, it's like, well, you could have always done that. I mean, you could have always ultimately copied somebody else's information and tried to put it into your presentation. If you can sleep at night doing that, I guess. But even then, when someone challenges you on that content, then that creates a whole nother can of worms. And then in the future, someone's going to ask you, did you create this, or was this AI created? Yeah. And you're going to have to say, well, we didn't create this information. We copied it, which is going to be a whole nother discredit from you're going to get discredited from so many areas. And then there'll be so much, by the way, somebody will be able to use AI to see that if you used AI to build out your presentation. Don't be surprised if people check it. If AI checks you for AI and all of a sudden somebody goes, this presentation's crap, it was AI generated and not actually created by a person. That's coming too. So
it's already here. They're doing it
so,
for colleges right now. There's
I did see that. Yeah. That colleges are checking to see if you've used AI to
Yep, they just run it through their little AI program and it says this was generated through AI.
The AI. And so then they're going to be like, oh, he cheated or she cheated. So let's get back on topic just so you guys understand. Now, if you're not, now here's the thing I'll tell you about the paper chart guy. You can't be fearful of AI. The guy who never changed his paper charts over never wanted to deal with the challenge of moving to a computer system. The person who doesn't want to deal with AI doesn't want to deal with the challenges of moving to a computerized system. The challenge with that is that if you don't, you have to understand AI for a few reasons. One, as Matthew just told you, you'll get oversold on crap you don't need. A lot of the stuff is in its beta version, it's garbage. Don't buy it. Please don't buy it. Most of it's just trash. And so you got to know what's what. You also have to understand is that the human mind is far, far more brilliant at this point than AI, okay? Now, that might not always be the case. Maybe AI becomes to where it can think in a level that's higher than a human. But understand that AI is not there yet. AI cannot, at this point, at this state of this podcast, think in the way a human mind can think. Okay, so what the example I gave is like with that fight or flight, like AI is not to a point where it understands where to move that patient that makes the most sense for Dr. Smith, that also doesn't make the patient upset, that also, all the other things, that the complexities that go into that, the human mind is still much brighter than AI. So be careful about trying to transplant and use information that, it's like, hold on. Don't supplement great training. Organizations will do that. Also know when to use it. You have to be able to use AI to supplement. So for instance, going back to our presentation, if I can create a PowerPoint in literally 20% of the time that it used to take, because I don't have to worry about the graphical side of things, and I just can drop in now my content. Well, that's huge, right? That saves a tremendous amount of time and effort that can be used actually on content, so that's really a huge advantage. If you can use AI to then tell you, hey, you're missing this many phone calls, and it's because you need to train up in this area, great. But AI is not a training tool. And even, if somebody calls you and tries to coach you, unless you've role played that scenario enough, unless you've done it enough, you cannot, we talked about on this podcast, the way people learn, right? Declarative learning and procedural learning. So I'll reiterate this for maybe if you're new to the podcast. Declarative learning is when you're actually explaining something to somebody. So when somebody calls you up, let's say from an AI-based company, and they say, hey, you're missing this, let me train you on this. That is declarative learning, okay? So what ends up happening with declarative learning, like I can tell you what it's like. So I have a manual transmission car, I've got a manual transmission motorcycle, and then I've got automatic, right? So we were talking this weekend about a motorcycle, and I said, well, it's not really different than a manual for a car, but I've got muscle memory, right? Now I can explain with a motorcycle, hey, it's 1 down, it's 5 up, it's, I can explain it, but unless you've actually been on the street riding a motorcycle, you don't actually like that, because procedural learning has to kick in. Same with the manual transmission. My son's learning how to drive. I can have him read a book on how to drive a manual transmission. And I can tell him, listen, you push down the clutch and then you're going to engage first gear and then you're going to let off the clutch and you're going to push in the gas. And I can explain all that to him, but that's declarative learning. To become a dentist, I could tell you, this is how you prep, do a crown prep. And I could declare that. I could tell you what that is and over again. But until you've done enough crown preps, until you've ridden the motorcycle or driven the manual transmission, right? And then there's a step up, like sometimes I drive a manual transmission on a track, right? Which is a whole nother level of manual transmission. So like you can declare something, you can teach somebody something, unless they've done it enough, they won't get into unconscious competency. So this is what you have to understand. AI will not get your team member to unconscious competency. AI can pick up the fact that you shifted the gear at the wrong place. AI can then tell you, hey, shift this gear like that. But unless you've done it, unless you've shifted that gear at that moment in time enough, you're never going to learn it. So you cannot say, well, now we've got this service, so we don't need to worry about our phones anymore. We don't need to worry about our case acceptance. We don't need to worry about whatever it ends up being because we've got AI doing it. Not true. Not true that you don't have to worry about it. Understand that it's a complement to what you're doing, but it's not a replacement. And if you see it as a replacement or this ads that are telling you now it's replacing, by the way, I'm seeing the ads that pop up and go, AI can build out all your content, do everything for you, breathe for you. It can make you breakfast. Like, stop. It's someone here's what they're trying to do. It's a new market. They're trying to capitalize before people realize that they're full of crap. And there's no regulations around it yet. It's almost like when the internet came out. It's a new frontier. There's no case law around it yet. So they can jump in, they can make these claims, they can do all these things and understand there's nothing at this point litigious about it that's come out yet. It's a new area. It's all new. So they're selling you a bill of goods and you've got to be careful. And so all these companies are quickly trying to get products out because remember how fast technology moves. And a lot of people are trying to get you to buy stuff that in their words, go back to your scheduling tool, it replaces human thought. Anyone who's worked in a dental office, 3-4 doctors, let's just say, knows that that's not how it works. Like every doctor is different the way they want to see patients. Every doctor wants different time for certain things. Every doctor has, there's so many intricacies and AI doesn't account for that patient who just walked in and all the other things. There are too many intricacies to say that AI already has all of your scheduling figured out. Can it add to that? Maybe miss some holes and some those types of things and some mistakes that are common? Sure. Yeah. But the idea of it replacing, it's absurd.
Yeah. No, you need to understand. It's like when people started transitioning from paper charts. Like, that's a great point. Is a lot of people leaned into this. Some people jumped right in immediately, and it was a disaster, and that caused the rest of the industry to kind of freak out and not want to do it. And some of them took their time, researched the data, and did all the background on all the companies that were doing it, and then slowly inundated it into their practice. And those are the ones that were successful. It's the same thing with this scenario. If you see an AI product, because I know because you and me are seeing all kinds of ads on it. If you guys are starting to see more and more ads on it, I would not hesitate just to look at it, like see what they're trying to provide, like look at the fine print, read through the material, understand what they're trying to get accomplished with it, and then see if that could potentially fit in with your practice. I think, it's not something that I would recommend by any means jumping straight into going head first into this one. This is something that you guys need to use a scalpel, not a machete. It's strictly, all right, how can this help the business rather than replace something in it? How can this help my team get the data? Because when somebody calls in, they're like, I just don't have the physical, I don't have the time to be able to do this. I don't have the time to train my team to make sure all of these things are going. Well, if you had all the data, you could set up a meeting just to train on what the data is showing, instead of having to try to figure out, okay, so Susie, what's going on up there? Are you sure this is what it is? Are you positive? Well, let's look at your phone calls and do this stuff. You already have all the data. So you have the metrics, you have everything you need right there to make a decision. It's just like when someone says their marketing's not working. Well, it has all the data. Like, as long as we have the money you spent, the new patients that are coming in, and what are the ads you guys are running, we can show you, all right, this is working, this isn't working. Same thing with all these new AI tools. If it can give you the data you need to enhance your business, to enhance your services, I would recommend using it or looking into how it can help your business. Also,
don't be scared. Don't be scared. At the same time, be cautious, but don't be scared, right? Don't be scared in the fact of like, you hear a new technology. Now remember, doctors by nature are fact finders, which means you typically need a lot of information before you make a decision. So, but not all of them. Some of them jump right in. Now, Now, what I will say to you, and is don't be afraid of it either. Learn, listen to, lean in. Like I've typed in certain things in ChatGPT before, and I go, oh gosh, that's not even close. Understand that it's learning, and it learns over time. So, it's one of those things where it will get better over time. But then, governments are going to heavily start regulating AI, and they have to, because, obviously AI is dangerous if not controlled. It is dangerous if not controlled, and it can become dangerous. And so you're going to find, some countries have shut down ChatGPT. I think you're going to find governance around AI and the way AI can be utilized. I think you're going to find it's no different. And someone made this analogy recently. It's no different than nuclear weapons, right? Nuclear weapons had to be governed, right? We couldn't allow everyone to just have nuclear weapons. We couldn't just have anyone be able to create them. There had to be controls, inspections that had to be governed, because we knew that ultimately speaking, nuclear weapons could ultimately destroy the world. And so we had to create governance around nuclear arms. And, at first it was utilized. So if you go back to the very history of nuclear weapons and look at the fact that, the United States used them in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we understand that was, obviously millions of civilians that were impacted by that and ultimately died from that. We understand that shouldn't be something that's allowed to be used in natural warfare. This is not about warfare, so don't get political on me. I'm just talking about the history, because someone already is getting political. Don't get political. I'm just talking about the fact of just like the beginning of nuclear weapons, where there was really no governance around nuclear weapons. There were no, international arms treaty organizations that governed them. It was just, they were just able to be used. But then quickly the whole world said, oh, we got a problem here. We can't just have people using nuclear weapons and uncontrollable nuclear weapons. And then what do we do with the waste? And the waste has got to be controlled. And so there was an international move to govern nuclear weapons. AI isn't literally any different, right? At first, everyone's like, what do we do about this? And then you're going to see governments wrap around it, get control of it. And then if we use it as a tool, then it can be utilized well. If it isn't governed well, then we have a problem, just like nuclear weapons. And somebody else made this analogy. I want to say it was Elon Musk. Maybe not. I watch a lot of Elon Musk, and maybe I just push that on Elon. But I would tell you that don't let the fear mongers creep in. There were days in the since I brought up nuclear arms, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and there's a lot of days in nuclear warfare that were scary for the world, and were very scary. And yet we governed those things, and we got control of it. AI will be very, very similar, I believe, in the fact that we're going to get control of AI, and there's going to be governance around AI. But then you're going to see it enhanced. For instance, Elon's working on Neuralink. And Neuralink has just been approved by the FDA for testing in humans. And so they're going to start using Neuralink to try to, it's supposed that it can cure Parkinson's disease, and it can help with memory loss, and it can help with a lot of other things, and that ultimately they're going to put a chip. I know some of you are already freaking going doomsday on me, but just hold on. But ultimately a chip that will allow you to use the enhancements of these types of things to assist. On top of that, AI. I just saw the other day, they were talking about as they utilize AI correctly, AI can start to figure out how to solve, literally cure cancer and other things, because AI will be able to take on so much data simultaneously and be able to solve so many medical issues that AI used correctly can really, truly transform the world's health. So before you get all the doomsdayers, and there'll be plenty of them, there's probably people listening to this podcast who are doomsdayers, and it's all coming to an end, and people have been predicting the end of the world since the beginning of the world. So however you want to deal with it, when it comes to your dental practice though, okay, we'll pull it back, because this could be a good conversation. I could talk about this forever, Matthew. Yeah.
This is hot topic right now. It's
and by the way, the first time I saw it, I was like, we're all going to die. No, I'm just kidding.
Terminator. Your 80s kid, Terminator.
This is
Skylink.
literally, this is
Skylink's coming.
I mean, this is like Terminator. Like, it does feel Terminator-ish, right? I mean, it really does. But look, I mean, what we can control. I think ultimately just don't let that keep you up at night. What I would tell you, and to focus on and to think about it, and it's really important to do so, it's just the fact of like, in my dental practice, and this might be something just to write down it, in my dental practice, in what ways can I use technology, i.e. AI, for example, AI, how can I use artificial intelligence in my dental practice to become more efficient, that can increase profitability and provide the patient a better experience? What are those ways? Maybe the team a better experience. So what are the ways I can use AI? In what ways is AI, not able to solve the issues, or that should take human interaction, and start to kind of think through that process and be really smart with technology. It's easy to overwhelm people with how fast AI is moving. One thing that's true, I remember this iPhone, I remember when it came out in, I want to say 2007 or 2008, right?
Yeah.
And the iPhone, I want to say 2008, but the iPhone, when it came out, I remember reading an article about the iPhone. And at the time, it didn't have all these apps. It had just the basic, 6 or 7 apps that were native before all the apps came on it. And, I read an article and it said, one thing you can guarantee about the iPhone is that it just changed the mobile phone for the history of the world. Like, it just literally changed everything. The entire game was changed by the iPhone. And that's true. I mean, iPhones were never the same. It killed BlackBerry.
Yeah.
It really, truly revolutionized what we expect in a phone. AI is the same way. Like, we're not going back. A genie doesn't go back in a bottle so easily. One thing we know is that AI is going to change technology forever. The truth is that, to never get an iPhone because you just believe that you should hold on to your flip phone and, you want to push up back against all your, whatever technology. I guess you could do that. Some people will, and maybe some people have, but probably better to utilize this thing and learn how to utilize it in your life. And so AI is no different. Let's, figure out how to utilize it in your life, and figure out how to utilize it to enhance the practice and enhance your life and enhance tools, and it can be an amazing thing. But I laugh at a lot of the things that I see in AI. Sometimes I test tools and they're just completely garbage. Be discerning. Understand that a lot of this stuff isn't where it needs to be. I get it. It can create websites. I get it. Those types of things. But no different than the typewriter didn't put people, moving away from the typewriter did not leave an entire generation unemployed. Yeah. Neither will AI, but it will enhance things, and it will allow humans to become much more efficient and to work inside of our unique ability. And yes, it will progress. It will also be governed. It has to be governed. But when we, inside of our business, learn how to use it correctly, it can absolutely transform your growth, your profits, your patient experience, your team experience, and all of the above. You just have to learn how to use it.
Yeah. I think just enhance your practice with different technology. If you're on paper charts, time to get rid of the paper charts.
That's so funny to me. I mean, what do you, are you just hanging on? You just want to be the last one, I guess?
He's just a rebel.
There's a point in your life where you're like, I'm just not going to learn how to do anything different. It's like, I sit down, I will tell you a fascinating thing. Now, this is a complete tangent, but I watched this architect who was used to using paper. Mm-hmm. Everything's CAD now. But I watched him take paper and I watched him sketch this home. And then what he would do is he would draw a kind of like the outline, and then he would take out another piece of paper and he'd roll it out and he'd draw that, and he would kind of lay pieces of paper over piece of paper over piece. It was super cool to see. Now, someone who does CAD's probably like, oh my gosh, this is the silliest thing
I could have done that in 2 seconds.
It was cool to see. I don't know that they're going to train new architects on how to do it that way, right?
I think maybe that paper chart doctor is like, well, I can charge twice as much because like that architect's probably like, these are hand-drawn blueprints. Can't get these anywhere else. So it's double the price. Just like these paper charts are hand. They've been here for 60 years. You're going to be good. Who do we have next week? We have somebody coming on next week, right? We have a special guest joining us.
Chelsea Myers, she's a dental life coach. And so she'll be on next week talking about what she does in her business and how she coaches organizations and individuals from a life coaching standpoint and teams, and how she grows their, utilize her skill sets to assist practices in their growth. And I met her probably a few months back. She's an incredible person. We've spoken quite a bit. She's doing some great work, and she's a great guest. So we're going to do a little podcast flipping. I'm going to be on her podcast, and she's going to be on mine. So it'll be a great day, busy day for us, but definitely want to, you want to hear that content. Anytime you hear people who are really, because at the end of the day, it's all about the life you live. And we've talked about that at Tower Leadership forever. It's like, just tell me what you want what you want. The dental practice is just an asset to help you get what you want. What is it that you actually want in life? And so she assists in that message as well, which is, ultimately this whole dental practice is just a tool to assist you to have the life of your dreams. And what is that life, and how do we get it, and how do we get it most efficiently? And then she's going to aid in that conversation.
I like it. I'm excited for that one. I know you mentioned it a few weeks ago, so make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, sharing. Share it with someone that you think might need that. This is going to be probably, I think, a week from now when this podcast airs. So make sure if you're liked or if you're subscribed, you'll get the notification saying it's coming up. Make sure you share it with somebody, and then we will see you next time. So thank you, Mr. Morin, for jumping in.
I'll say this. You're welcome. Glad to be here. Glad to be back. Look, if you don't hit, for me, I get busy. So if I hit subscribe, then all of a sudden I get that notification on my phone, because I'm not going to remember. So if you hit subscribe, at least you'll remember, because it'll pop up, and it usually pops up when you're getting ready for work or whatever, and you'll have a chance to listen to it. But glad to be here. Glad to be back. Glad to be back in the office. I'm not used to taking 4 days off, Matthew. It's hard for me. Like I don't do well with that. I got to keep it going. I worked from home for a week, and I about jumped out a window. I got to be here and be active. So glad to be back at it. Glad to be with you,
sir. You get used
to
it. You fill the void by calling Rachel.
There you go. There you go. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a good one.
Thank you.